In this video, we're going to be having a little bit of a general discussion and kind of a wave overview about why I think we're actually in a second golden age for Hasbro Star Wars. I think that's really accelerated a lot over the last year, and judging by the recent waves, the opening waves for 2026, I think there's a very strong case and lots of evidence to support that. And judging by what we see coming in the pipeline here over the next year, I think that momentum is going to continue to compound. So recently, for Black Series here, this is one of the opening waves for 2026, and this is the very first time I picked up an entire case of action figures. Came with one of each for Master Dooku and Quinlan Voss, and then for Kyle Katarn and the Seventh Sister, there's two of them. Don't mind having duplicates of those two. Those are some great characters that, especially Kyle Katarn, means a whole lot to me. And while I'm not typically the biggest Inquisitor fan, of all the Inquisitors that are out there, the Seventh Sister I think was my favorite. I really like her design, and it's a very striking design to me, especially the helmet here and just the overall look for her. So I'm glad to get a Black Series action figure for her. But a couple small details about this wave. This is probably the first wave of action figures, especially for all Jedi, where they actually have the waving effects. And I know this is something that people have been talking about for the last couple years, that Hasbro just doesn't seem to be including that perceived value for a lot of the Black Series action figures. Anakin and Obi-Wan for their single releases are evidence of that, but perhaps those were made in the pipeline much earlier, before some recent changes. I suspect that the decision to go ahead and go with Anakin and Obi-Wan as is was made much sooner than this wave right here. But with that, and then plus the price increases on top of that, there was a lot of question about the perceived value for these action figures. I mean, a lot of times you would just get the action figure and then maybe a lightsaber, for instance, or just a standard E11 or DC-15. Just generic accessories that are pretty much a dime a dozen. But here, it seems like Hasbro is going for a lot more value for what we get. Of course, Dooku here has the alternative head. And then Seventh Sister, she has a lot of accessories included with her as well. Quinlan Voss, between the waving effect and then the unique lightsaber hilt here, which I never knew Quinlan Voss had a ginormous lightsaber hilt. I think that's kind of interesting. None of the action figures we've gotten of him before had anything like that, but now we do. That's something I'm going to have to go back and look for the source material. And of course, Kyle Katarn, a character that definitely is a huge fan favorite, especially for me, and a character that probably would have been on a lot of our wish lists for an action figure to be made in Black Series. And most of us, at least even as recent as a couple years ago, probably thought that Kyle Katarn is never going to happen. But that day has finally come, and of course, he's a great action figure. I think he's kind of a hybrid of all 5 Jedi Knight games mixed into one, which I think is kind of an interesting take for him, but I think it turned out great. But the point being is that I do think Hasbro is increasing the value we're getting with these action figures, and judging by what's in the pipeline as well, and then what could potentially be in the pipeline, I think the price increases especially are kind of justified. At least for these 4 here, I think individually they're usually either $27.99 or $29.99 even USD, which, yes, it's expensive, but for the value we're getting here, and then for the characters themselves, I think most people are going to be willing to pay the price for that, especially Kyle Katarn. Expanding universe characters, there really was no price ceiling on most of them, and you can see that evidence on like eBay, for instance, where a lot of the EU comic packs from back in the day, it seems like there's no ceiling on a lot of those, and people are definitely willing to pay the prices for them. Of course, it's a much smaller group of the fan base that'd be willing to pay some of those ridiculous prices, but me included in some cases. But it's I think for the price point that these are made at, $30 is probably within the realm of reason that most people will pay. Okay, it's an expanded universe character, a fan favorite from a video game that I played 20 plus years ago. $30 I think is a fair price to pay. And for the price that this entire case was worth, I did not feel bad about the price point at all for it. I think it was totally justified, and it's perfectly reasonable for what we actually get here. A lot of the same lines for TVC. I brought out some of the most recent TVC releases with Shakti and Padme. Of course, the Emperor's Wrath Vader, I've talked a lot about that. It's a great action figure as well. And of course, Maul, from what I can gather, is a slight upgrade from the original Mandalore Maul. The horns might be a little bit more sharp, and I think the just the overall look in the face is a little bit more cleaned up. But I don't really plan on getting that one either because it's not enough of an upgrade to justify. But of course, this Darth Maul, and he typically always sells pretty well, so there's really no problems there for most people. The Stranger, not really my thing. Who knows if I'll get the Stranger at some point? It's possible, but he's not really high on my list right now, and I don't really have the media plans to get him. But TVC, at least the last couple years, we know that Hasbro was kind of skipping out on a lot of the paint apps for action figures. One that comes to mind is like the HK-87 Assassin Droid, which I think has been almost 2 years ago now at this point. But that's just one example of many where a lot of the paint is very basic. And now going back to Black Series real quick, it does kind of slip through every now and then, like Dooku here. You can see for its lightsaber hilt, it's just a generic gray hilt there. No paint on that whatsoever, except at the end. But could use a little bit more sprucing up. But generally speaking, it seems like a lot of the releases we're getting are much more detailed now. And for TVC, that's very evident with like Shakti here. I mean, look at the details on her and just the vibrancy for her robes as well. For $20, I personally think that the value is here. And just the detail in her head sculpt there and then her head tails. It's incredible. And it seems like the reception from the TVC community as well would probably agree with that point. So $20, I know it's hard to justify for a lot of TVC characters. I mean, 3 3/4-inch action figures at $20, it's hard to believe that we're there. Especially since 10 years ago we were at, what, $12.99 I think. So we're at about an 80% increase in prices in that time. But of course, we're getting some definitive versions of a lot of these characters. Padme here, Clone Wars Anakin, and many others in the pipeline here. Instead of just getting, this is a step forward, we're pretty much getting definitive for almost all of them. But what's the overall point of this video? I think we're in the era of possibilities right now. We're going to be getting a lot of characters that I think most of us only dreamed of, potentially Hasbro making as a debut or going back to the drawing board and redoing. Master Dooku here, I think, is a character that a lot of people would have dreamed about, and then the fact that now he's a reality shows that possibilities are endless. Same with Kyle Katarn here. Seventh Sister, even for an Inquisitor that really hasn't been in any media for about 10 years now. The fact she's still getting recognized, I think, is a great thing, and of course a lot of people are going to be excited about that. And then other evidence is like Joris and Grand Admiral Thrawn, and then Gilad Pellaeon from the Heir to the Empire pack. That's another sign that characters that most of us would have only dreamed of ever getting are being made in reality. And then this kind of goes back to the importance of like the March Madness tournament, and then like the last figure standing tournaments for TBC, and even Black Series is tapping into that now. It's very important for everyone to try and get into that if you haven't done so already, because this is an opportunity to potentially get characters that you really want in your collection. At least get the word out there that, hey, this is a character that was a fan favorite for many years and perhaps we've forgotten about it. Or maybe tooling can be lended to potentially make some of these characters a reality. Someone that comes to mind that's very important to me, and I hope gets a TVC release at some point, is Tiber Zahn. I did make a couple posts about him, and that he usually makes my number 1 or number 2 spot for my last few lists from the last couple years. But this is my way of trying getting the word out there, and it does raise a lot of eyebrows where people are like, oh, you know, I forgot totally about Tiber Zahn. Yeah, he really should have an action figure. Yasen Izard as well. I've noticed, especially this last year, or the last several months actually, that she's starting to make a lot more people's lists, especially since Imperial officers are starting to get more releases, and I think Deidre Miro could potentially lend some tooling for her. And of course, now that we're checking off boxes for a lot more expanded universe characters, we're going to be seeing a lot more characters like Yasan Azar, Nana Sidala, for instance, potentially get some more recognition. And of course, none of these are Hasbro sponsored, but I know a lot of the people on the Hasbro Star Wars team, especially Steve Evans there, he pays attention to this stuff. So if you can kind of get this front and center in front of him and say, here, this is a character that needs to be made, the chances of that happening are significantly more likely. And then you get some people that say, oh, there's no chance of this. Well, slim chance is better than none. Because if you don't do anything, then nothing will ever happen. And even if it takes potentially 10 years for it to happen, I mean, a lot of us are probably still going to be collecting in 10 years. At least that's what we hope for. Of course, life circumstances get in the way and change things, and you never know, you might lose interest. But for a lot of us, if we've been in the collecting world for 20 plus years now at this point, there's really no reason to see any drastic change. Might cut back some, and I'm kind of seeing that in some areas for me, that I might want to cut back a little bit and just focus on certain characters or certain themes and things like that. But generally speaking, my head's still in the game, and of course that'll probably be the case for a lot of people, and then still collect the occasional action figure. But going back to the era of possibilities, I think characters like, just some examples like Darth Nihilus, Darth Bane, even Darth Malgus, I think these are all characters that, if we're in the era of possibilities again, these are characters that could potentially be remade and put into the vintage collection, for instance, or even redone in the Black Series. I think Darth Nihilus really needs a redo from the ground up. He shouldn't have any borrowed tooling. But who knows if that'll happen. But at least for a TBC release, I think that can happen. And I do think we're starting to see Hasbro listen to the community a lot more. And that's been one of the biggest emphasis over the last couple of years, is that if just Hasbro listened to what collectors actually wanted, of course the demand would be there for a lot of the characters. People would be willing to pay for characters that they actually want. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't be willing to pay $20 for a TVC Darth Nihilus. I certainly would. Even $25, I'd be willing to do that. Palm Krell, a character that people have been asking for a long time now. I'm sure he will be a deluxe release and probably a deluxe price, but I think a lot of people would be willing to pay the price for that as well. And then that kind of leads into HasLabs. If Hasbro made HasLabs that people really want, I think people will be willing to pay the price for that as well. Even like a $1,000 plus Death Star, even if Hasbro really went all out for it and did a great campaign, I think people would show up for that as well. But who knows what the future will bring, and I guess we'll see what happens. Probably here within the next 4 months or so is when we'll find out if there's going to be a HasLab featuring or supporting the 50th anniversary. But I'm sure that'll happen. But the point being to this, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about this latest Wave for Black series. This is kind of like a dream come true wave for me, where very rarely do I like all the action figures in a wave, and I'm typically more picky about what I get. But this is the first time I looked at a wave and thought, yes, I really want every character from this wave, and I will get an entire case for it. And the price aside, it does not bother me at all, because all 4 of these characters are perfect in every way. And the same can kind of be said for TVC. Yes, $20 is a little bit of sting, but for characters like Shakti and Padme, I'm wholeheartedly willing to pay $20 for characters like these. And judging by what we're seeing here in the pipeline, many of those characters I'd be willing to pay the price for as well. So I think that momentum is going to compound, and the only thing that I don't think, even though I see this as a second golden age, I don't think this is going to be in the volume like it was back in the 2000s. I don't think anything's going to match that ever again. Of course, we're in a different era now, but a couple years ago, I think a lot of us thought that in a way Hasbro Star Wars was kind of on the slab, where it's like, I don't know how much longer it's going to last. And in some ways I kind of foresee that, but I do think we're going to have at least a couple years of a golden era. And thinking back to TVC 1.0 and Legacy Collection, 2009 for instance, I think we were in a golden age for Hasbro Star Wars at that time. But then you fast forward to 2012 and 13, only just 3 to 4 years later, and it was a drastic 180 basically. And I think that could potentially happen here. So this kind of leads into my bigger point that if we're in this era of infinite possibilities, this is the time to make things happen. Any way you can, whether it's supporting the lines or even participating in fan votes and things like that. Just getting the word out there that, hey, these are the characters we really want to get made. Characters that are very important to you, even if the expanded universe is not your thing, but there's characters that you think Hasbro's slacking on. This is the time to get the word out, because even though we might be in this great era today, there's no guarantees that by the end of this decade, even 2030, that we'll still be in the same position. It might be a total 180, or even Hasbro Star Wars might not be a thing by that time. Who knows? So, point being is just, we have to celebrate with what we're getting now. Continue to get the word out there that Hasbro is on the right track. They're doing lots of great things, and hope they can compound on that and just get the word out there that, hey, these are the list of characters that we really want. I truly think they're listening in many cases. And of course, now with the new leadership at Lucasfilm, I do think that's going to be a great burden lifted on Hasbro as well. Of course, I'm sure they have to deal with the royalty fees with Disney and Lucasfilm, but I suspect with Dave Filoni being more in charge on the creative side now, while I'm not the biggest Dave Filoni fan in terms of the content, the series that have been made in recent years, I do think he would be the type to give Hasbro a lot more creative liberty to make what they want and make what the fans want. But we'll see what the future holds. But at least for the time being, at least for the next year or so, or even 2 years, I think there's going to be a lot of great things coming. And I think it's going to pull a lot of people in. And despite the price increases, if Hasbro continues to make characters that people really want, price is really going to be no object, because if it's a character that is really near and dear to you and you really want, people will pay the price for it. And like I said, we've seen a lot of evidence of that over the years. But that's all I really wanted to say. I just wanted to make this little video essay about the general direction of Hasbro Star Wars over the last year or so, and then of course what we're seeing for this year and what the future might look like. And I'm feeling generally positive about everything. I think this is the most positive I've felt about Hasbro Star Wars in quite a long time, and it's kind of reminiscent for me with how it was back in the 2000s. I think that's a really cool thing that all these years later to kind of be experiencing that again. And I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. But anyways, expect reviews for all 4 of these characters here very soon. And many more as well. I do have many more on the list here soon. And channel as well on the way to 1,000 videos, which has been one of my goals for the last couple years. Only about 43 more videos at the time of recording this. So probably here within the next few months. But anyways, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot. And of course, go back and check the catalog of videos that I've released before if you're new to the channel, or if there's a character you really want to see, there's a good chance it's probably featured in some capacity on the channel. And as always, thanks for watching.